Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Wednesday. This is Erudition Generations. Here, me and my brothers discuss topics that relate to pretty much everybody. That's why we call it Erudition Generations. For younger people and older people alike. So it doesn't matter what age you are. We want you to tune in. We want you to ask questions. Please engage with us as we uh, talk about. mm, Today, our topic will be about our a book that me and my brother read. Speaking of which, let's bring him on. I know he's been waiting.
Well, hello, everybody.
Hello, hello, hello. We
I
know
was with
all
the I
about
was with the three
Sean.
hello. Hello.
We had to agree at each one of your personalities. You know that.
Hey, just because I'm
Festive.
wearing a flowery shirt doesn't mean that I got multi personalities.
No, just festive. Just very festive.
Hmm. Ready for that good old Hawaii vacation.
So,
Just wondering when they're going
our
to give me my fat passport.
no, that's you ask them that question and they're just saying no. So while we're waiting, that's enough horsing around while we wait for people to get on. Let's jump into the topic, shall we? Dad had us read a book. He assigned both of us a book to read. I want to talk about that because we're seeing that a lot right now. It's I have it here with me. The Assassination of the Black Male Image. You remember reading that, Papa? We had this book assigned to us. What was it? A week ago?
Hmm.
So I want to talk about specifically the title says it all. The assassination of the black male image. They are not only killing black men in general, but they are trying to kill the very image that you cannot live down of being this beast. In the book, that's what it does. It says skipping all the niceties back when they called you beast. As we don't get out of that. Last week we used the word erethic, which means that you are driven by sexual impulse and you have no control over that. We are seeing that recently with this football coach, I think. I can't remember exactly what, but he was caught up on sexual harassment charges and missed out on the Super Bowl, uh, commentating on the Super Bowl. Or in any commercials if he was in them, I'm not sure. But I think he was only supposed to be commentating. And because of the sexual assault allegations, they took him out of that completely. And it when you read that book, you see that they really don't want you to live that down as you everything that you do has got to be related back to, oh, you're sexually harassing me, or this is you not controlling your sexual impulse. I need to punish you for it. I don't know how we get around that or why people see us like that. Anybody that is on and you have just joined us, go ahead and drop your comments and ask and see if you have an answer. Papa, I want to ask you though, how do we get around restoring our image?
Well, the problem I find with it, because the book mentions it, is that we can protect our image while we're alive. That's just the plain and short of it. While you're alive, you can go, nobody tries to fight you too hard because most of the time, if you're a celebrity or something and you're alive and you always have an input, you can always say something about
Hello.
certain allegations. Hey, mom, you can always have a say in the conversation. But when you're dead, that's when it all changes. People can go ahead and pile on as much stuff as they can. which is always what they try to do. They're always trying to pile on something to go ahead and destroy your image. However, if you when you're alive, you could go ahead and flat out refuse and refute these claims and toss it back at the person throwing them. But when you're dead, that's when the rumors start spreading and everybody hearsay starts to spread, and then the rumors start growing, and that person's legacy goes down the crapper. So, in all honesty, in order for us to even be able to try to fix our image, we would need somebody, if not an entire group of people, who would go ahead and make sure that even while you're alive, all the way to the point where you're dead and gone, you have people who will still defend your image so that they can go ahead and say, no, that's not who this person was. Because remember a couple of weeks ago when that picture was brought up, we were on Dad's stream, I believe, and and a picture was brought up talking about the first person to ever make it rain. Nobody knew who that person was, and as a result, you're able to go ahead and believe whatever, because that person's not alive to say that they never did that in the first place. You're just listening to hearsay and rumors and whatever else comes up, whether it be memes or not. The fact is, when you're dead and gone, it's the problem of who's going to believe you. Are you going to, because like everybody says, irrefutable proof is always needed. If the person came up to you and said, I never did that, then 50% of people will go like, yeah, that's untrue. But when you're dead, people can only go off of what other people saw. So while 5% of people will go ahead and say that you were a good person, the other 10% who believe that you don't deserve any of the fame, the glory, or the money will go ahead and decide to crush your entire image and take away everything that you've done, slow bit by bit.
Mom asked, that is a good question. I think one way to restore your image is to continually show yourself set apart from the stereotypes that define you.
Mm,
Do you agree with that, Pablo?
absolutely.
Same here. You do have to not show those, well, conform to those stereotypes because they're out there. And even in the book, it talks about stereotypes. And we only read the first two chapters. I'm a little bit into chapter 3. But for anybody that really wants to pick up that book, it's only a little bit. But within those first 2 chapters, it really hits the nail on the head of this is these are the stereotypes set in place for our black men. And unfortunately, we have conformed to them over time. So we got to get better at not portraying those stereotypes of the over sexualized, over grandized male who cannot control himself, the angry black man who is without any rhyme or reason angry, the person that is a thug and wants to shoot anybody, cause violence, and of course put music, our comedy, we put it in almost every aspect in society, driven from decades, and we have to pull that back because if we don't, we're going to set the precedent. That's our image, and you're going to have more cases where, well, the cop shot you because he felt threatened because you were violent. Well, the woman felt harassed because your culture seems to always have an issue with controlling their sexual urges, which in the book is relays as to why that's not true and the men that put that thought into motion, such as uh, Frank Hoffman, Carol Wilcox. Dad has talked about these people in The Men That Deceived America on the channel. If you want to learn more about that, go and check that out. That will give you everything that you need to know about these men. And there couldn't have been a greater title, The Men That Deceived America and Why You Think That Way. And now we have to defend that image, our upright image. Because if we don't, we're not going to succeed. We're not going to get very far. Dad says, were you all surprised about what you read in the book? I know you only read 2 chapters so far. Uh, Personally, yeah, I was surprised about what I read because it kind of stated everything that you feel already and just puts it on paper. Papa, how do you feel about it?
Well, to be quite honest, I feel somewhat upset about the. I felt somewhat upset about the stereotype that was pushed, but at the same time, it was also some. Whenever I was reading, I was like, "Well, this isn't what we do. This isn't us." Because to be quite honest, the stereotype that was pushed in the book was more image created by, as you said, people who wanted to deceive America. But the thing about it is, when you really look into it, you see a bunch of contradictions with their own words. Because how in the world can a man be a beast if they're on the fields do and chained? You can't really do much of anything if you're in servitude, let alone if you're always under surveillance. There's not much that a person could do. And sure, people can say that, well, your sexual impulses, but at the same time, to be quite honest with you, every human being has sexual impulses as well as animals as such. So how are you going to be able to go ahead and say that a certain person, a certain group rather, is uncontrolled with when it comes to their sexual urges? It's rather angering just in and of itself because of the fact that it's so many contradictions, so many stereotypes pushed, all just to destroy one race of people just because they have fear about it.
I agree. What is I'm trying to get the comments. Sometimes they blank out. I'm trying to figure out what's going on with that. I think I skipped one. Uh, Being aware of the stereotypes are helps everyone understand what others see when you respond or react. Yes, they do. Being aware of the stereotypes does help you mentally be conscious before you act out that stereotype. For some who actually study or know what's out here, others they want to as we said, they conform or they just because it's out here. If that's what they think of me, well, I'm gonna go and act on this. And unfortunately, we have an entire generation like that because we don't look towards the past and figure out what was great great granddaddy doing and how did that affect granddad and then my dad and affect me. We don't look like that. We go, well, they didn't do for me, so and I came out all right. I should be fine. And that mentality has to stop. We have because you hear it all the time. I'm gonna do me. I'm gonna just do me because somebody
Because
else
of the
didn't.
uh, no, you can go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say the reason that everybody's talking about the reason people say I'm a do me is because of the fact that most of the people only because people believe in that stereotype of, well, doesn't matter what you do, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And in all honesty, when you're only looking out for number one, as some would say, it's always going to lead to some sort of problem down the road.
Well, that's what it's about, right? We have already said that it's going to trigger generations. It's a problem that you would start, and then it's going to trickle down your generational line. So looking out for number one, but you are procreating is probably not the best idea. And history has proven that. Dad asked, did anything you've read so far upset you? If so, what was the most upsetting part? Hmm. I think the most upsetting thing that I read in that book is how, forgot where, but how there was whole scholars. You got to understand, these were people that were lauded as scholars. They even had a German, wasn't even from America, but knew all about black people apparently. And what's upsetting about that is that how a group of racists, because that's what they were, got together and made entire doctrines based on what black people are, specifically what black men are. And when you look at that, it's like, wow, that's names that you would know. Stanley Hall, Dr. G. Stanley Hall. When you see these people, it's like, man, that's what these people thought of you. And that we're still trying to fight that image off of us because these people put that original thought in people's head and don't think that just because we're in the year 2023 that what happened 60 to 70 years ago does not affect you. We are still living with that. As we were having a conversation personally last night and realized that we're not even two generations out of slavery. Racism has a very long memory. And these don't think that these things aren't still being taught. Because these people's books from Stanley Hall, Carroll, Walter F. Wilcox, these books are still out there. If you want to get them, they're available still to this day. And while you would get it and have a different understanding of what they're telling you, of wow, this is laughable. This don't make no sense. You need to understand that somebody else could be reading that and be like, this makes sense. This is why they do this. Because a lot of people went on right along with that bandwagon years ago. Papa?
I believe you hit the nail right on the head. To be quite honest, yeah. The problem with it is most of these books out here are fully available to the public, and information written from a long time ago is always going to be something that somebody's going to turn to, especially if it's from a world-renowned scholar or somebody of high education. They're going to instantly think, well, this person had an entire degree based off of studying the subject. So of course, I would believe the expert who wrote about this. And in all honesty, it's tragic because of the fact that when they write about it, it it's completely based off of a stereotype that they artificially created from the beginning.
Yeah. They I'm still trying to figure out what's going on with the comments. I'm sorry if we're seems like we're not getting to everyone, but it's having some problems right now with the comments. I'm trying to fix that. So we have Mom. Great points about the perspective of how the book is written, Sean Anthony. Yes, you have hit it right on the head each time of what is going on in that book. I can't wait because by the time we start next Wednesday, we should have finished the whole book. And then we can really go into depth on these things and figure out what it's doing. Or not even if we don't finish it all the way, because I know both of us are I'll be in school, you're in school. So we'll be busy. So even if we don't get through the whole book next Wednesday, we'll be further along because I really want to figure out what does he have to say about this? Because this the first two chapters hit very heavy. For those of you that want to go and read that book, be mindful. It's going to get deep. In the book, they quote Thomas Jefferson, the writer of Declaration of Independence. His words show he didn't see us as human. Uh, yeah, he quoted a couple of people. I believe you can't remember them all right now, but Thomas Jefferson was one of them. And when you see that, it's like these are names that you know. Again, Stanley Hall, the founder of the um, American Journal Association, was it? Or did he go to them? But you hear these names frequently. And for them to have said something about you like that, and it's still a name that you know, and we still laud these people, and we still say, well, they did so much for us. But when you look at their words, it's like, did they? Because when they were talking about all men were created equal, I'm pretty sure they weren't talking about you as a black man. When they had when you have Washington, I believe was quoted in that book, and they said most of them will slight their work or be idle, something along those lines. And he basically called you lazy, and you have no IQ. You're slight your work because you don't know it and you don't want to do it. And it's like, oh wow, James Madison even. They're he quoted all of the founding fathers. And when you see that, it's like these are people that we've been taught about since the second grade. But that's how they really felt. So yeah, it can get hurtful, but it's nothing new. And I think that's why, because it should be more hurtful. But then you look at the history of America, it's like it's not surprising. And there's a different type of hurt. It's not the hurt of, well, now I'm sad. I don't have any self worth. It's more of, how dare you? It's an outrage. And we've had, I think that's been felt, even if people don't know it, you can feel it and then reject it on. It's probably there's so much violence in our community right now because we don't think about who we are, where we come from. GZ says the question always come up about leaving. If someone hit you, why not just leave? We do it at jobs, we do it in our relationships, we do it when it comes to religion. What is the problem doing it when we experience prejudice and racism? Because unfortunately, we can't take the blood that was spilled out of the ground. Because yeah, we would just there was a black migration. There was people that went to Canada and said, if the land don't want to do right, goodbye. But unfortunately, for most of us, we have become so rooted in this country. It ain't gonna be that simple. I had a friend not too long ago. His family were immigrants from the Dominican Republic. So they went to the main states over in New York. Then they flew over all the way out of there to California to live with family members over there. And you have so many people. I think he said all the way up to his great grandma, which is still alive. And you can't just leave the land that your family is on. Some people do to seek better, but when you have ties here, you don't really want to leave that as easily.
Yeah, but I'm gonna
And
jump
so,
in here because I agree with you. It's it's definitely the roots and everything that keeps us here, but it's also the fact that, as our father has mentioned various times before, it was because the reason that most of us don't leave is because America made a promise. It promised that it was going to be the place of opportunity. It was going to be a melting pot, and it was going to be a place where everyone could live freely. And even to this day, we constantly talk about how we are the land of the free. But even so, every single time you see another report of somebody being mistreated, about somebody who didn't want to conform, and they get abused or even killed. And the and as our father said, it wasn't the fact. It would have been all fine if they didn't promise. Everybody could have gone, because if America didn't make the promise that it would treat everyone equally, everybody could see that America was not the place to be, because obviously it wasn't for us. But we not only shed blood and sweat and tears, we had multiple generations that grew up on this belief that freedom was going to be ours, just for it to not come. And every single time, with each generation, everybody believes that we're a step closer to getting the freedom and the love and the rights that we deserve. But with every single generation, it's as if we take a step back, because once that generation completely dies out, people believe, well, now the people who were educated enough to know that we were to know our tricks back then, they've died out. So now we can go back to our same tricks, because this generation did not learn from those tricks. So they step up their game and they continue their ways. So while people believe we're getting a step closer to finishing what was started with at the beginning, we've already taken at least 100 more steps back, because with each generation we get more and more complacent, and we believe, well, what's the use talking about the wrongs that America has done and everything?
and that's
Why
what we
should we
said,
talk
though,
about it?
right?
It's old news.
We said
Hmm.
that they conform. After a while, you don't know, and then you just say, "Well, I accept. Can't beat them, join them." That's the saying. And unfortunately, that's not getting us anywhere, but killed and our image besmirched. And then that image becomes a stereotype. That stereotype inflicts prejudice, and then we thus end up dead again. So
Exactly.
How
because
do
as
we
you just said,
escape that?
oh, well, I would before I answer that, I'm going to go ahead and go back because I completely agree with what you said a few seconds ago. Because we do grow complacent. We do decide, well, if we can't beat them, we're going to join them, which grows our stereotype. Because as you can see, there's several people in our community that go and agree with that same mindset. They go, well, we can't beat them, so let's try to get as much as we can by complying with them, which in turn destroys our image because when they use you to destroy our image, they're just as quick to throw you to the wind because you just said all this stuff about your own group. If you say that they're just money hungry, like that book said, money hungry gang like welfare queens, then what you're doing is you're pretty much telling everybody that's what you are as well. You're no different from them. If you're
What
willing to
goes
go ahead and take any, oh, you can go ahead.
Oh, I was just about to say that that's exactly what Dad's next comment said. Jefferson said, love seems with them to be more an eager desire than a tender, delicate mixture of sentiment and, and sensation. So basically, you don't have empathy. You don't have love. What you have is lust. And that you go after your own desires. I'm sorry, I
When in
can't remember
reality, that
exact
is
quotes
completely untrue.
from the book. As I get better with retaining it, it'll get better.
That's
But
fine. It's
can't
fine
remember
because
exact quotes. But I remember running across that, and again, people of stature are have made these assumptions of you, and then put out a whole doctrine based on it. And I think that was the biggest upset upsetting part for me. But again, not surprising. It's not easy to leave something that you helped build. It strikes me as funny that the people saying go back to Africa think that we have rights to this land. Uh, yeah, I want to say that, but they kind of laugh at it. They make jokes about you not having rights here. So it's not that they think that you have rights to the land. They know you don't. It's more of just get away from me. Go as Donald, as our former president has said, Donald Trump, and called them an S-hole country. This is what they perceive of you, or a large majority. I won't say everybody, but a large majority think, yeah, that's what this is. Go back to that. You don't deserve our land. They be thinking.
but they
And
also
they
forget because what they forget is they didn't really build up this country. What they did was they had slaves, which you can go ahead and see in some of the buildings because some slaves left behind tiny imprints and stuff in the buildings that they were the real people behind most of the structures that were built. So how are you going to tell people that you don't belong here to leave when in reality they were the one who built your house that you live in, the plantation that you own, and helped keep the farmland that you use up to snuff. Because in all honesty, when you look at the Dust Bowl, you see that people destroyed that land and destroyed it so badly that even now, all of the some of the dirt and some of the land are unusable and are almost sand or clay like and can barely grow anything.
there's some
Meanwhile, they
things about
tell you to go
Dust
back.
Bowl.
Yeah. Meanwhile, they tell you to go back to your country, and, And just as you said, they know you don't have rights there. They know that you don't have anything to do over there. But
No,
especially since
here
your roots,
they don't
yeah,
have you don't have any rights here, and they want you to go to a country that they think doesn't have any worth. Because I looked at uh, a while ago. The statistics have probably changed because it was from 6 years ago. But worldwide, ge- ge- geographically, people are not knowledgeable about. They're not knowledgeable about geography. So when you tell them, okay, where's Afghanistan? They said around 7% of people globally could point out where's Afghanistan. If you ask them where Guam is, a good 7% of Americans can tell you where Guam is. 7% out of America. So when you have that disconnect from the world, it's easy to think, well, that country is not as far off as this one. Oh, they're go back there. You don't deserve our land. Somebody actually said that once. He was drunk, but as people often say, a drunk man's words is a sober man's truth. And unfortunately, that's how some people will feel. And one way or the other, they will display it. So we see black men in the media. Sorry, we see black men in the media defining themselves to be sexually to be. I'm sorry, seeing. Oh, okay. Defining themselves by their sexuality and exploits. Papa, are these comments visible to you?
yeah, I can see it.
Mine is having an entirely issue today. I'm sorry, folks. Comments are usually pretty easily flowing, but now some are disappearing and some are jumbled. So, defining themselves by their sexuality and their exploits. Yeah, because unfortunately, that's what we have put value in: sexuality and exploiting people. How much money do I have? It don't matter how I obtained that money. Probably exploitation. Probably providing sexual favors to somebody, and now she's giving me whatever. I'm just tagging her along. You hear this in our music. You hear it on podcasts. You hear them all the time. And unfortunately, that's what we put value in: our pleasure and our material goods. And that is a habit that we do need to break. And I think this book goes over that if you owe it to yourself to break it. Because years ago, people already predicted this about you, if nothing else than to prove them wrong. Because so far, unfortunately, we have proving them right. If they were to come back today, rise from the dead today, and see what's going on, you'd have a lot of people agreeing with them again. Because unfortunately, we have conditioned ourselves that conforming to these stereotypes put out so long ago is the right way to go.
When in actuality, when you look at people like Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Frederick Douglass, if you look at all these black people who had to rise above the standards of their time, you see that they not only taught themselves how to speak more fluently, to how to do things that showed them to be more educated than people now. You see that the reason that you see that they had to do that because in order to go ahead and get to a point where they would be able to be recognized and acknowledged, they had to be smarter. And though and though the people of their time did not like that, they there was a bunch of abolitionists as well as many others who agreed and were happy to help defend them because of the fact that they were so intelligent. Because when you look at it, conforming with the crowd and going and being dumb, or gang like, or whatever they want to describe you as, doesn't make anyone want to help you. They just think, well, it's absolutely true. So why are you fighting against it when it's visible that you are what they say you are? Because if you're a beast and if you walk on four legs and you are completely untrained and you don't even act like a human, then somebody saying you are a beast is exactly what they're viewing.
Yeah, even to the point where somebody that's not in America, that surprised me. No, he's not even an American. He's not from the North, not from the South, not even American, but he's German. And said, yeah, this is what we need. But unfortunately, that's the route that was taken. Yet they are founding fathers of this country. Yep. Unfortunately, that's what they thought. But nevertheless, that's the founding fathers that said these things, called you lazy. You had no empathy. You had no love. But when you have a movie called The Imitation of Life, which in itself, that title should have already given you away, of you are an imitation of life. You are not life. In the beginning of the book, it quotes a passage from The Adventures
Huckleberry
of
Finn.
Huckleberry Finn. hmm And in there, it said basically, Negro life, it don't matter. The
Mm-hmm.
when Sawyer says yes, ma'am, nobody was hurt. When she asked, was it not popular? I'm having a minute remembering. Uh,
Yeah, it's fine.
they asked, "Is everybody all right?" Oh no, just killed him a nigga. And he says, "Oh, well, that's fine because real people sometimes get hurt." And that already lets you know they don't value, they don't consider you life. They just consider you a thing, an imitation of life. You're not them, you are the other. And when we when we live out these stereotypes, you're not doing any justice to that. We have to break free of those stereotypes that are put out there. Because as mom always says, there's nothing new under the sun. But if we keep on saying, well, it's nothing new, I'm gonna just do this, I'm gonna just do me. It don't matter because what's in the past is in the past, and all these other cliches, we're not doing us ourselves any favor. So we need to get better about how we project our image. Because if we don't, we're not, unfortunately, we're not going to do very well. As a result of knowing how people feel about diverse communities and cultures, it's important to remember to take away anything, no, to take anything they say with a grain of salt. By the way, it's raining here. That's probably why the comments are all jumbled. Internet
Mm-hmm.
is wonky. I don't really know. We've never had an issue where I can't see comments or they come up on screen and it's only half a word and then blank. So I hope it doesn't come up through the stream. But for on my end, I can't. Sorry, folks, I can't really see your comments today. But I'm trying to address everything as fast as we can, and Papa is too. Papa, if you see them, make sure to click on them and address them as well.
Yeah,
But
I'll
yes,
make sure.
as knowing how people feel about diverse communities and cultures, it is important because if you don't take anything away, then just hold off on believing anything. You're not. It's not going to be beneficial to you because when you believe anything, well, then you won't be able to decipher facts from myth, as we like to call it, because there's always a myth. And what is a myth? It could be based on reality. It's a thing that happened. Like if lightning struck the ground, let's look at Greek mythology. When lightning strikes the ground and a firebolt is there, that happened. But we say no, Zeus did. We create a we create better myths of as we go down the generations. And the problem is if we do not decipher what is fact from myth, we're going to fail. Because what these people have done is that they took a myth, a lie, and then went, okay, this must be true because of this. Even if there was an heretic mentality, you need to also remember the history of people from slavery. They were only meant to breed more slaves and then work. So if it came off that they had an heretic mentality, remember they established that. And when you take something that has pleasure, I'm going back to Stanley Hall, who is the APA, founder of the APA. And we learn about him in our psychology classes as I take psychology, that you have set the precedent for this because that's what your ancestors conditioned us to do. And Freud and Stanley Hall, when they got together and created that uh, psychosexual theory, they already knew, okay, the pleasure of sex drowns out this, it causes this. It could, there's a whole domino effect on sex. So when you take the fact of oh, black men are have a very erratic nature. They can't control their sexual impulses. Well, they could have also been that they're trying to escape a horrible situation that you put them in, even if it was meant that they had to be controlled breeders. So when you have the knowledge of history and then you compare it back to what these people said, and you realize, as you stated, Papo, it contradicts one another because you based whatever that is off of your controlled experiment that you ran all by yourself. You put them in a lab and said, you two go breed, produce for us. We're going to sell it, so don't get too attached. And when you have this whole situation that goes down, trickles down the generations, and then you create a whole doctrine saying this must be true because this is what we did. It's an outrage. And there's no other way to put that.
Hmm.
Great points about the promise that was made of being U.S. residents, Sean Anthony. Everyone still coming here looking for that promise.
And the sad fact is that most people are not going to find it here. Because as much as we take pride in the fact that we're the land of the free, the bold and the free, and we're here and we're a melting pot of information and cultures, we're not. I'm sorry to say, we are not. Because as you can see, there's 50% of Americans that whenever you look at the news or something, are telling somebody to go home, go to their own country, they're not welcome here. There's hate that the fact that we have a law against hate crimes itself is pretty much a way to say, yeah, you are not welcome here. But and in order for you to be here, we have to make certain laws to to help you live here. And while some people are willing to go ahead and say this law will protect you, most others are like, well, this law only has certain degrees of protection. So you're not going to be covered 100%. So you're just sitting there hoping. It's the same thing with self-defense, really. Because when you look at the self-defense law, people believe that, well, if somebody comes up on my property, I have full reign to kill them. The answer is no. That is not true at all. Because what the court will see is they will figure out if the crime justified the means. If the person only came up completely unarmed and punched you in the face, and you blew that person away with a shotgun, that's excessive force, and thus it's murder. If somebody came up to you with a knife and didn't even slash you at all, then it's questionable if that person even meant to harm you or threaten you, meaning
However,
it's
I'll
still
bring in
murder.
this point. When you brought up the situation of law, and we know that yes, that is the case for defense laws, but it also goes hand in hand with what we're going through right now and those stereotypes. Because if it's a black man, oh well, you were profiling, then it becomes a civil rights problem. However, when it's a black man defending his property, and he probably did have reason to, then you have the situation where, oh, well, you didn't have to do that. For instance, it was a farming couple out here in Colorado, actually, who they were having farmland. They've been known to have issues with people running up on their property, uh, trying to intimidate them out of there. Something like that you saw in the Them movie. But here, a person actually ended up dead, actually. It was crazy. He was working in the field. It was a Mexican man that they hired to do the work the field, help with the crops. But unfortunately, they killed the man and put his body uh in the chicken coop. And it's something that you would hear out of a movie or hear in the story, and it's like I can hear it, but I can't believe that this is happening. But these people ran up with weapons on the property. That's the case that always got me. These people took weapons to their property. The man threatened to shoot them, and that is why he was on the police watch list. Because he dared to say, if you come on this property, you may get shot. You may encounter bodily harm. And they put him on the police watch list. Not these people that were threatening him and his family. But because you, as the black man, and your images, the stereotypes that we have accepted, and but we don't really care where they came from. We don't know why. We just know that, yeah, we've heard it. And then we look in the media, and it's like, we see it. It must be true. We don't see that it is only a, a stereotype, it is a ploy. It's just something that we have put out there and we perpetuate to this day, unfortunately, in our music, in our TV shows, and we keep on beating that horse to death of this is what we are, believe it. And then I've had somebody actually quote Maya Angelou to me saying, well, you don't show us any different. And as Maya Angelou said, once they show you who they are, believe them. And unfortunately, we have not shown ourselves to not be this character that these men have stated.
Now hold on, I don't really agree with that because no, we have some individuals have shown us the same as people say the same as like individuals say now just because some white people are racist doesn't mean that you should believe that everyone is racist. And just because some black people are ignorant and gang like and are in gangs doesn't mean you should believe that all black people are criminals and in gangs. But at the end, everybody comes to the same assumption, but nobody wants to have the same assumption said about them. If you're in a group of snakes, are you going to sit there or are you going to see if one of the snakes are good or bad? But nobody ever thinks about that because of the fact that they want to go ahead and say, I'm not like them. But the problem is, if you're going to say that, why can't you take someone else at their word? And when they say that I'm not like that, the fact is you don't want to give it a chance. And then right in there rises the problem. You don't want to give it a chance, so you go ahead and throw caution to the wind and say, I'm going I'm going to go ahead and give you a chance. And then when they show you that they're bad, you're like, well, I shouldn't have trusted you. But it's really the fact of, if you knew that there was a possibility, and then why in the world would you not first be? Because think about it like this. I always say this. If you Before you ever trust a person, you should go ahead and slowly see what they're like. If Because they could have some qualities of a good person, but then they could have contradicting qualities that make them an absolute horrible person. Because what you're trying to do is find make because in the as much as I uh, evil, the fact is humans in and of ourselves are not only greedy, but we are in ourselves cautious to the point of being close to evil. And if there's books out here that people believe in full honesty with people who have studied black people from from several years, from almost a decade ago, then why in the world, and people believe that everything they're saying is the gospel truth, why in the world why would you trust a person who comes up to you and says, I'm not like that,
I
and
think the
here's
word you
why?
were looking for was century ago, almost a century ago, not
Yes,
a decade. Decade is 10
yeah,
years.
that's what I was trying to say. I was trying to find the right word, but as I was saying, because the thing about it is, everybody's trying to look for that one person that's from the crowd that isn't like the rest. But in all honesty, you can't really find that person, because whenever you see a person, you could get the wrong idea from just their introduction. If you see a person fighting in the parking lot, you're not going to think that. Like, for instance, we won't even go into fighting in a parking lot. If you see a shark in the water and it looks incredibly hungry, are you going to sit there in the water and think, well, that shark might have a glimmer of mercy in it to try to
The thing
not eat?
is that I understand the analogies that you're using. Muhammad Ali used the same one with snakes. Like, am I gonna figure out if one of y'all gonna bite? Nah. Oh, no. All of them aren't poisonous, but let's figure out if they bite you. No, I'm not sitting around trying to figure that out.
Exactly.
What we're
You're not David from the Bible. You're not going to sit in a lion's den and hope not to be eaten.
that's Daniel.
Yeah,
Daniel and
sorry,
Lionsden.
Daniel. I'm really not good at names.
Yeah, I feel you. And but the names that you do know that are in this book, it's like, dang, these are because you gotta remember, I may not be good with names, but I do the names I do remember, I retain. And we have people like Stanley Hall, Thomas Jefferson, Washington, James Madison, A- Adams. It's you see these people and it's like, okay, I know your name, but half of these people's name I can't figure out. But I got to know your name, and this is how you really felt. So it's a lot of, like I said, it's a lot of outrage. And I know that by the time I finish this book, the perspective will be open. But you gotta understand, there's a lot that's going on right now, and unfortunately, we got to work on that image, because unfortunately, we're setting a very bad image. I keep thinking about it. Like, what if these people were to? Because before that dude Takeoff get killed from the Migos, they had this famous song out that kept on hearing everywhere called "Digs" because the instrumental was great. I didn't understand what they were saying in the music itself, but in the music video, you saw these people getting up out of their graves and walking back to life. And I'm like, if that were to happen, and would they see people acting like this, thuggish, overly grandizing sex, perverting, and then you see people all over TikTok. If you scroll through TikTok right now or Facebook, you probably gonna see somebody exploiting or showing sex. And unfortunately, if they were to see that, they'd have been like, "Oh well, see, we told you, we warned you that they were like this, and now they've corrupted you too." And that's not what that is. And if we don't state that image, if we don't fix it, you're gonna prove people right from decades before, and then they're not gonna change that prejudice about you because they're gonna be like, they were absolutely correct. Great points about response to the chain of events and the cycle of reputation and stereotypes. So yeah,
Yeah, so I don't
thank
think
you.
we'll have any more time to answer comments because turns out it's already been an hour.
Ooh, wow. Yeah, the hour goes by really fast. I'm sorry that we couldn't get to comments as fast as we usually do. Last time it was slow, but we at least got to everyone. Here it might be because it's raining, but I even now some of the lines are blurred for when I put them on screen. Papa, can you read them and read us out?
Yeah, I can see them, but don't know if I'll be able to
Yeah.
click on them to be quite honest.
No, no, just read them out because I can. Mine is blurred.
All
Oh
right,
no, it's back.
all right, then it come.
Sorry,
All right.
sorry I didn't comment as much today, boys. I'm a bit tired after last night. You are doing a great job. Thank you. It has been a challenge, but we're getting better. It's only our second time doing this. Keep reading and growing. Yes, we will plan to do that. After this book, uh, there's a couple of other books that I wanted to read outside of my regular school coursework, which is exhausting. You get it from your mama. Get what? You get a lot of things from you and her. That's how
Hmm.
genealogy works. It's wonderful.
Yeah, I'm about to say, who's Gianna? You really thought I wasn't gonna clown you for that? Hmm.
No, what sense did that? Forgetting names. Oh yes, forgetting names. Yes. Uh, yeah, we don't do very good with names. I'm working on it, but there's a lot of names that you got to retain even from here, and but they're beneficial to learn. Oh man. Hey Eric, I know we're just getting off. We just finished up the hour. Well, 4 minutes over the hour. Comments were very weird today. I apologize for that. We're getting better at that. I want to encourage you to go back and watch us and comment. We will get back to you in the comments. Me personally, because I am kind of hosting the show right now, as well as Dad in the background. So one of us, between the three of us, me, Papa, and Dad, one of us will get back to you if you have any comments on today's show. But last thing that I want to remind you all is that this lesson was based on the knowledge gotten from this book, The Assassination of the Black Male Image. We have only read 2 chapters of this, and they've already been very, very informative. So if you don't have that book, I advise that you go and get it, or it may only be online. I haven't seen a print version. Thankfully, we have one in our house, but I haven't seen a print. But it is available on digital. I would advise that you go read that and join us on this journey of reading these books and discussing what's going on, how they pertain to today, which is what Erudition Generations is all about. Pulling up in the past and bringing it to our present so that we do not repeat the same mistakes. Dead sleep. Yes, I know.
Guess
All
that's
right,
a
Papo.
sign for us to lead us out.
Yep, lead us on out.
All right, everybody. Now, I know it's been a good lesson, and I know everybody's got gained some good knowledge from this. And you may be expecting some final words, but in all honesty, I believe final words are not necessary for this because I'm gonna let all the music from my outro do some justice. Everybody have a good time and a good night. Peace out, everybody.